In the top stories, hundreds attend the state funeral of the late Sir Probin Innes. National Day of Mourning observed in honor of former governor. And dignitaries remember the influence of the late Sir Probin Innes. The details on these stories and more after the break. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Channel 5 newscast. I'm Carla Berridge. A state funeral was held for the late Sir Probin Innes on Thursday. Shira Flanders has more.
ZIZ has joined with family members, friends and members of the general public to witness the state funeral of the late Governor Sir Probin Ellsworth Innes at the Wesley Methodist Church on Seaton Street in downtown Bastia. The atmosphere was filled with love, camaraderie and patriotism as hundreds gathered to pay their respects at the funeral service of the late Sir Probin Innes. Tributes in the form of song and poetry were presented by friends and members of the Innes family. Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, led the scripture reading while Probin Innes Jr. read the eulogy in respect to his late father. Among those attending the ceremony were His Excellency the Governor General, Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, members of the Federal Cabinet, former Governor General Sir Edmund Lawrence and Lady Lawrence, members of the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force and other security forces, the Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Douglas and other members of the opposition, members of the Nevis Island Assembly, former government ministers, family members, friends, students and members of the general public. The state funeral service of the late Sir Probin Innes was followed by a procession to the Springfield Cemetery. Sir Probin Innes MBE was a former governor who served as the governor of St. Christopher Nevis Anguilla from 1975 to 1980 and was knighted by Britain's Queen Elizabeth in 1976. Following the separation of Anguilla, Sir Innes served as the governor of St. Christopher and Nevis from 1980 to 1981. Sir Probin leaves his wife, Lady Rosamond Innes, and his 3 children. Sir Probin Ellsworth Innes MBE was born on November 18, 1936. He died on Sunday, March 12th. He was 80 years old. And although the revolutionary leader's journey has come to an end, he will always be remembered as a father, a husband, a friend, a visionary, and a fellow Kittitian and Nevisian who laid down his life for the advancement of his country. Reporting from the Wesley Methodist Church on Seaton Street in downtown Bastia, St. Kitts, I am Shira Flanders for ZIZ News.
Today was declared a National Day of Mourning in honor of the passing of former Governor Sir Probin Innes. Flags were flown at half-mast and a public half-holiday was declared. A book of condolence was also opened at government headquarters, while the body of the late governor was open for public viewing at Government House. Sir Probin's remains were received by a guard of honor before being taken into the viewing area. Throughout the morning and early afternoon, hundreds of persons visited Government House, all wanting to pay their respects to the former governor before his farewell service later in the day. The arrival of the body and portions of the viewing of the late Sir Probin Innes were carried live on ZIZ Radio, ZIZ Television, and streamed online at zizonline.com. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris says the passing of former governor of St. Christopher, Nevis and Anguilla, Sir Probin Innes, has left a void in the psyche of persons in the Federation. The Prime Minister paid tribute to the late governor ahead of the viewing of the body at Government House.
He has meant a whole lot to me and a whole lot to the nation. Sir Probin was an eminent citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis who served well, he served with decency, and he served with dignity.
Prime Minister Harris said Sir Probin Innes will be greatly missed. He further expressed his condolences to the family of the late governor.
We will miss him for the wealth of knowledge of historical events, our place in the context of our own history, and our efforts at development. I want, on behalf of the nation, therefore, to again extend sincerest condolences to Lady Innes and his 3 children as this time as they mourn this colossal loss not only to the family but to the entire country.
In a statement released on the passing of Sir Probin Innes, Prime Minister Harris described him as a man who made significant contributions to the nation, not for recognition, but for love of country. Sir Probin was a fitting exemplar of St. Kitts and Nevis's motto, country above self, and he will be deeply, deeply missed by all those whose lives he has touched. In a previous interview, Governor General His Excellency Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, GCMG, CVOQCJP, described the late Sir Probin Innes as a distinguished historian who has made his mark on the nation's journey. His Excellency spoke about Sir Probin's accomplishments, particularly regarding the history of the Federation.
I think his name said it all in terms of Probin, because he was a renowned historian. He has published works which are acclaimed in terms of things like historic Bastia and Methodism in the Caribbean, among many others. He has done several distinguished lectures on the Buckley's riots, the Buckley's uprisings, if you want to call it that, and several other national events. And so I think that Sir Probin has made his mark as someone who has contributed to a national journey.
The Governor General noted that Sir Probin's love of history was his most memorable trait and reflected on his desire that everyone in St. Kitts Nevis should embrace everything that is historically ours.
I think I try to reflect the love of history myself, but Sir Probin, because of his tremendous research and his commitment to history, as I indicated from his days as a history teacher, he always wanted to ensure that we took ownership of everything that was historically ours, that had been developed, for example, Brimstone Hill Fortress, which he saw as a tremendous display of workmanship on the part of our forefathers, and that we should accept it as belonging to us and being at all times proud of its place in our history.
Sir Probin Innes, MBE, was a former governor of St. Christopher, Nevis and Gullah, and later St. Christopher and Nevis. He passed away on March 12th at age 80. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, leader of the opposition, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel L. Douglas, paid tribute to former governor of St. Kitts, Nevis and Gullah, the late Sir Probin Innes. In a recent address on a local radio station, Dr. Douglas credited Sir Probin as one of the persons who influenced his decision to become the parliamentary representative for St. Christopher VI in 1989. He also made reference to Sir Probin's sterling contribution to the 4-H movement in St. Kitts.
It is in this area in particular that I believe he made his greatest influence on my life. Because as a young 4-H'er, having seized with the passion of a young person trying to make a difference in my community of St. Paul's, and with the encouragement and the support of people like Sir Probin Innes, Mr. Basil Henderson, and of course Agnes Kerritt and others of that type, I was able, I believe, to have shaped the earliest part of my life in public service.
He said he salutes him as a leader of our country, as a parent, as a human being, as a fellow Kittitian and Nevisian who has laid down his life for the advancement of his country. Dr. Douglas said he supports the decision of the government to give the late governor a state funeral with full military honors. After the break, Prime Minister Harris offers his sympathy after a deadly explosion in St. Lucia, and improving productivity remains high on the national agenda. We'll tell you more when we come back. Chairman of the OECS Authority, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, is sending his thoughts and prayers to the people affected by Tuesday's explosion at Farrand Quarry in St. Lucia. In a statement issued on Thursday, the Prime Minister said, quote, "Your Caribbean neighbors offer deepest sympathy to you, the people of St. Lucia, especially the families and friends of persons who were killed in the explosion. We pray for their souls and for all of you, as well as for the injured and their loved ones. The statement continues, "It is in these agonizing moments that we not only grasp the frailty and fragility of life, but we are also reminded of the incredible beauty and generosity of the human spirit. It is also in tragedy that we cherish the value of life and hold fast to our family and communal ties," end quote. The Prime Minister said the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the whole Caribbean community stand with St. Lucians during this difficult emotional time and pray for their healing. Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine has received a grant from the National Institute of Health to undertake a research project focusing on mosquito-borne diseases. The project will look specifically at whether the monkey population in St. Kitts and Nevis plays a part in the spread of diseases such as chikungunya, dengue, and Zika. During a press conference at Ross University on Thursday, Dean of Ross University, Sean Callanan, said the grant from the NIH is significant and the research project plays a crucial role in developing programs for public health.
And we have a big part to play in understanding why diseases in animals can be transmitted to humans and what part animals actually play in keeping particular organisms in the environment. And recognizing this and understanding it is crucial when it comes to developing treatments or developing strategies to prevent diseases.
Dr. Michael Vanden Plas, senior scientist at Ross University, said the goal is to determine if the monkeys here have the viruses within them and are acting as reservoirs where mosquitoes can pick up the infections.
Over the past, we've been well aware of dengue being endemic on St. Kitts. Also, we have on St. Kitts a unique monkey population. The African green monkey that is on St. Kitts in Africa is a reservoir for these viruses. Indeed, it is where these viruses originated from.
Minister of Health, Honorable Eugene Hamilton, said the research into the connection between monkeys and vector-borne diseases could have implications for the tourism industry as well.
We have the situation where in St. Kitts and Nevis, on our very shores where the tourist ships come in, individuals have monkeys wrapped around their neck and interacting with passengers from these ships. So understanding the transmission of diseases from monkeys to humans is important. It will teach us, of course, how to conduct ourselves interacting with tourists as they come here from.
The grant totals $300,000, and the first step of the project will be the collection of blood samples from local monkeys for examination. Improving productivity for small and micro enterprises was the focus of a national workshop held at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel on Wednesday. The event was organized by the Chamber of Industry and Commerce in collaboration with the International Labour Organization (ILO) and the Caribbean Employers Confederation (CEC). The effort is a part of a wider initiative being hosted throughout the Caribbean community CARICOM to effect productivity improvements across every sector to ensure businesses in member states remain competitive in a globalized environment. During an opening ceremony, President of the St. Kitts Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Jose Rosa, addressed participants drawn from private and public sector agencies. He said that small and micro enterprises represent about 60% of the total economy and need the appropriate tools to be competitive.
For me, productivity is an attitude. It is an attitude that we put in any action to drive meaningful results. These positive attitudes allow us to perform any task at the highest level. It is to look at the areas in which we create waste and approach such with the intention to minimize and eliminate the possibility of creating such waste. Management is responsible to promote this attitude in the whole organization. However, all have to come on board to promote a culture of inclusivity to engage the complete organization with clear direction and goals that foster in an attitude to attain excellence.
The one-day meeting was attended by representatives from various companies as well as officials from the Department of Labor and the St. Kitts and Nevis Trades and Labor Union. Minister of Labor, Honorable Vance Amory, made a link between increased productivity and national development. He said that government must improve efficiency in the public sector in order to provide adequate and efficient service to support a vibrant private sector.
As the Ministry of Labor strives to engage with the different businesses at all levels, we will strive to provide guidance in accordance with the law. We will strive to act objectively and professionally. We will make sure, as far as possible, that workplaces are conducive to working, so the employees, and that there is that responsibility on both sides. The employer is required to provide conditions at the workplace which are conducive to the work which is ongoing in the workplace, and that the employees also provide and have a knowledge of their responsibility in the whole process.
Carol Boddy, treasurer of the local Chamber of Industry and Commerce, said the information collected from the session will be used to help guide decisions on the local and regional level. Coming up, Brazil meat exports plunge after corruption scandal. The details when we come back.
Courts must be crazy. Courts mad again. Courts must be crazy. You can't complain. It's madness. And courts during the month of March. Huge savings up to 50% off and pay nothing for 60 days. Visit a court store near you for pure madness. Look out for crazy deals up to 50% off and you pay nothing for 60 days. The mano only a court. To miss it would be pure madness. Courts must be crazy. What? Courts must be mad. Oh, you mean? Courts must be crazy. Courts mad again. Courts bringing value home.
Brazilian meat exports have dropped from more than $60 million to a mere $74,000 a day. This follows a corruption scandal that has undermined trust in food controls and prompted other countries to pull Brazilian beef and chicken from supermarket shelves. Here's more.
José Crispin has been working with cattle all his life. He lives in Paulínia, one of the many beef-producing areas in Brazil. Last week, police revealed that beef and poultry factories were bribing authorities to extend the expiration date on some products. They also said they were using chemicals to conceal rotten food. José Crispin says he's worried.
We work hard for this sector, and we know the country is not doing well. Now the crisis of the meat. That is our job. We have a calendar for vaccination. We follow all the rules we are asked to. We ensure that all the livestock we have here reaches high quality levels.
People here are fearing the consequences of the meat and poultry scandal. They claim that it's a sector that employs over 400,000 people and that with the current economic crisis, Brazil cannot afford to lose any more jobs. Brazil exports animal proteins to at least 150 countries. It is the largest meat exporter in the world. The government has tried to downplay the scandal, saying that only 3 meat-packing plants have been shut down out of more than 4,000 in the country. But 21 have been forced to halt exports and are under investigation. Professor Pedro Felicio claims food controls in Brazil are very high and doubts the seriousness of the investigation.
There were many problems in that investigation. I believe they exaggerated. We had police officers talking about food. They missed technical experts in that operation. The officers said they were using acid in the food, but it's all authorized. I think there is a political motivation behind this.
Political or not, the scandal has already had an impact, as countries like China have halted chilled beef and poultry imports from here.
Confidence is something that we need time to get, but we can lose it in a short period of time. But we are confident that the relationship we built with the markets was built with hard work, and we believe we will be able to regain this relationship even stronger than before.
Beef is a matter of pride for most Brazilians. They claim it is among the best in the world. And even though the scandal has hurt exports, it has not stopped people here from eating one of the foods they love best. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Paulínia, Brazil.
Director of the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit in Barbados says despite recent rumors, no one is being locked up for having a single spliff of marijuana. More in this Nation News Barbados report.
Director of the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit, Cheryl Willoughby, has rejected claims that people are being locked up for having a single spliff of marijuana. She said other forms of intervention were being used. Ms. Willoughby was speaking at a stakeholder breakfast hosted by the charity My Child and I at Hilton Barbados on Tuesday.
Over 98% of the persons who are charged for a spliff, they get community service or they are worked with by social workers. We now have a drug treatment court. We'll be evaluated the pilot of it, and more work is being done in the area of rehabilitation. So no one is incarcerated, persons who are found with a spliff. The medical model is being applied to persons who are at risk, but you will find that those persons who are actually given sentences for marijuana, they either have outstanding warrants, they're either on bail, or they were charged for trafficking or possession near a school or something more serious. So I just want to debunk that no case that we saw in our research was one that incarcerated a person for having a simple spliff walking on the street. Those persons were dealt with by social workers at the probation department.
Coming up, London attacker said to be UK-born and known to spy agency, and doctors in Liberia test new Ebola vaccine. The details when we come back. UK Prime Minister Theresa May told the House of Commons the Westminster Bridge attacker's identity is known and he was British-born. British police have launched raids across the country after Wednesday's deadly vehicle and knife attack near Parliament. Police say the suspect acted alone. 8 people were arrested after searching homes in London and Birmingham. Here's more.
The first video of the attack itself. It shows the speeding car moving at high speed along Westminster Bridge. A woman is thrown from the bridge into the river below. This, the horrific aftermath. Bodies strewn across the bridge. A dead woman under the wheels of a bus. The attacker's vehicle that had ploughed through pedestrians along the pavement crashed into the railings of Parliament before the attacker, armed with a knife, set off on foot, breaching the outer perimeter of the Palace of Westminster, murdering 1 policeman before being shot dead himself. Overnight, in a suburb of the Midlands city of Birmingham, police carried out raids at the property where they believe the attacker's journey began. On Thursday morning, a police spokesman gave this brief account.
Hundreds of detectives have been working through the night, and during that time I can confirm that we have searched 6 addresses and made 7 arrests. The inquiries in Birmingham, London and other parts of the country are continuing.
These images show the suspect being treated before he died. The investigation will focus on his preparation, his associations and his motivation. And in Westminster itself, on Thursday, a government, a city and its people determined to go about their business. And at the Prime Minister's urging, Parliament convened as usual, observing a minute of silence in the House of Commons.
Tomorrow morning, Parliament will meet as normal. We will come together as normal. And Londoners and others from around the world who have come here to visit this great city will get up and go about their days as normal. They will board their trains. They will leave their hotels. They will walk these streets. They will live their lives. And we will all move forward together, never giving in to terror, and never allowing the voices of hate and evil to drive us apart.
Police Constable Keith Palmer, father and former soldier, stabbed to death just metres inside the vehicle entrance to Parliament. He's being hailed a hero. The desperate efforts of Foreign Minister Tobias Ellwood administering CPR, not enough to save his life. On the bridge, 2 people were killed, dozens wounded, some gravely.
Now, basically, we just coming across the bridge, and then we just heard a bang, and then we just saw 3 people in the road. And then someone called out if anyone got first aid experience, and a couple of us went running to help see what we could.
I could hear screams, and then we heard gunshots again. And as we looked along the bridge, because we were only crawling along the bridge, there was bodies, literally.
Must have been about 10 bodies.
This video, taken by the former Polish foreign minister, showed the attempts made by members of the public to give first aid to the casualties, even before the emergency services arrived. After Brussels, Paris, Nice and Berlin, this was a day Londoners feared but somehow knew would arrive. The security services have foiled multiple attempts, but there are few challenges so great as an individual, possibly acting alone, armed only with deadly conviction, a car and a knife. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, London.
It has been 3 years since the United Nations declared an Ebola outbreak in parts of West Africa. Yet doctors say they still do not know how the virus was passed from animals to humans. More than 10,000 people died from the disease across the region. Doctors in Liberia are now testing a new vaccine on survivors. Al Jazeera's Nicholas Hake reports from Liberia's capital, Monrovia.
It all started here, deep in the forest of Guinea, with this man's son. Scientists call the baby in this picture Patient Zero, the first human to get Ebola in West Africa. For Chen Umuna, this is Emile, his 2-year-old son, who used to love playing football. Scientists suspect Emile got the virus by touching an Ebola-infected bat in the forest. Children here hunt and eat them. Emile passed Ebola to his mother, who passed it on to his sister, who passed it on to his grandmother, and so on, until more than 28,000 people, mostly in West Africa, were infected.
Ebola came here in our little village. Then the white men and the government came and visited and made big promises, but nothing has changed. Ebola has destroyed us.
The outbreak was not a war, but it certainly felt like one. The virus shattered lives, tore families apart, wiping out entire generations and leaving children orphaned. Survivors suffer from neurological problems and are treated as outcasts. It's in Liberia's densely populated capital, Monrovia, where Ebola spread faster than anywhere else in the world. Doctors Without Borders treatment units were submerged. The organization took the unprecedented decision to call the military for help.
People who had red eyes, who were vomiting, who had diarrhea, who presented symptoms of Ebola were brought here. They were separated from their families, and if they were tested positive, they were brought in tents that were laid out here. It was called the hot zone. This is where doctors and nurses wearing full protective gear would treat Ebola patients. So many Liberians lost their lives here. And the Ministry of Health are dismantling this treatment center, saying there's no need for it. Ebola is no longer a problem.
And yet the virus is still in the environment, in animals, but also in survivors who carry it in their semen, eyes, and nervous system. As long as they don't have symptoms, they are not contagious. Doctors like Phil Ireland, who survived Ebola himself, are now testing a new vaccine on survivors. It has shown positive results.
We give them Ebola. It's not the one that will develop the disease. And then the body immune system, the soldiers in the body, learn how to fight the Ebola. So when they get the Ebola from the environment, okay, they already know how, the body already know how to fight the disease and defeats the disease.
Health experts warn the risk of another outbreak is likely. Where and how it will come, no one really knows. Nicholas Hawk, Al Jazeera, Monrovia.
Next in sports, FIFA appoints a new Secretary General, and glory and money fuel Argentina's youth soccer frenzy. Stay tuned.
It's the Courts home event. Shop today and complete your kitchen, your dining room, and your entertainment room. Shop using Ready Finance. It's easy, affordable, and flexible credit. Plus, you pay nothing down on purchases 24 months and over. So come in today and get great deals to complete your home at the Courts home event. Courts, bringing value home.
FIFA has shuffled executive posts, appointing a new Secretary General as two of the most powerful men in the sport, then FIFA President Sepp Blatter and former UEFA President Michel Platini, are serving lengthy bans from all football-related activities.
The leadership of soccer's world governing body is getting a facelift. In the wake of widespread corruption scandals involving FIFA, two of the most powerful men in the sport have lost their clout as they serve bans from soccer-related activities while they are being investigated. With former FIFA president Sepp Blatter out of the top spot, a new figure has risen to the seat of Secretary General. Last June, Fatma Samba Diop Samora was appointed to the position, becoming the first woman and non-European to hold an executive post at soccer's governing organization.
Club Social Parque, a humble youth academy in Lionel Messi's native Argentina, has perhaps produced more world-class players than any other. Former players say that the secret to Parque is the long-time coach's eye for spotting youth talent. Here's more.
On the field and on the sidelines, dreams of reaching soccer greatness. But youth soccer in Argentina runs on a whole different level than many other places around the world. After all, this South American country has produced some of the greatest players of all time, like Diego Maradona, and current Barcelona star Lionel Messi.
The environment is very competitive, really very competitive. These kids have a lot of pressure on them, be it in a final or whatever game, from all the parents screaming from the sidelines.
Besides Messi, many Argentines play for Europe's elite leagues, with contracts worth millions of dollars. Former player Lionel Pipa Gancedo says the big payoff is helping fuel the national obsession.
We live in a country where money and success is associated with happiness. The parents associate soccer with that.
At just 7 years old, Benjamin Palandella has already been identified as one of the top players in his youth league. He plays on the same concrete court with the same coach who trains some of the country's best professional players.
I like coaching the kids. I like talking to them. I like to motivate them and to discover a promising player.
But even for talent like Benjamin, success is not certain. A lesson Maria Veronica Rosanda says her son is beginning to learn.
He has started to understand that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. The clearest example was this last World Cup. He understood that even Messi, who's the best in the world, can lose in a final, and that's not the end of the world.
But that perspective can easily get lost on those chasing soccer glory. Manuel Valdez, Associated Press.
The Chinese company behind the $780 million purchase of AC Milan is registered at a drab office block outside Shanghai, but when Reuters went to investigate, it turned out the offices don't actually exist. Ryan Books reports.
This is one of the world's most prestigious soccer clubs, and this is apparently the headquarters of the mysterious Chinese group that wants to buy it. Sino-Europe Sports is the name behind an $800 million bid for Italian giants AC Milan, registered 2 hours outside of Shanghai. Reuters correspondent Adam Jordan travelled there to try and find out more about the company behind the bid, but that was no simple task.
You have this web, this tangled web of shell companies, which all seem to point back to one place, which is this tower block here right behind me. We've wandered around the offices and we've looked for the particular office numbers that they have in their various official and publicly available filings. Now, we haven't been able to find any of these offices, and when you look at the displays, the numbers for each floor, you actually realize that the numbers listed mostly don't really exist. It doesn't go up that high on any of the floors.
It may not be clear where Sino-Europe Sports is actually based, but what is clear is the deal has been repeatedly delayed. The company keeps asking for financial extensions, reports saying Milan has issued a deadline of early April for the latest installment.
One of the big questions over this deal is what is holding it up. Now, in soccer and in sport, entertainment and beyond, there are concerns currently that investors here in China are having more difficulty getting money out of the country amid a sort of crackdown on capital flight by Beijing. And so one of the big question marks is here, what's going on? Is it that the government support that was there before for this sort of drive, the high-profile investment into soccer, is no longer there? Or is it that the main investors are now really struggling to get the money that they promised and to firm up and close this deal?
When we come back, we'll have another look at the stories that made the headlines. Recapping the top stories, hundreds attend the state funeral service of the late Sir Probin Innes. National Day of Mourning observed in honor of former governor. And dignitaries remember the influence of the late Sir Probin Innes. And that's the end of the ZIZ Channel 5 newscast. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carla Verage. Goodbye.